Thank you very much for the invitation, distinguished guests. So you spoke a little bit already about my biography, about my biographic background. Let me add just a little bit on that. Like you said, I come from acting, but I'm not the first and only politician who comes through the side of an actor, So think about your country, the United States. You have Ronald Reagan. I will talk about him later on in the context of globalization. Talk about Arnold Schwarzenegger, who is originated from Austria, which we see somehow as Bavarians as a very much culturally related area. And yes, why I choose politics, and the question was raised quite a couple of times when I started my career as an actor. I always said the thing is, if you start to be a public person, you have to have a vision to a certain extent. And if you start to be an artist, I'm also a writer. The thing is, if you have somebody who gives you an advice, and most of the people say the general opinion about somebody who's an artist is somebody who wants to be an artist, he wants to be famous. At the time where my political and consciousness and how, and when I developed my reflection on the society, it was in the 70s. And the 70s and the late 60s was the time of Vietnam War. It was the time of apartheid. It was the time of where the people started moving and getting a different awareness about their existence, about their culture, about freedom, about democracy. That was the time when I compare it to now, when I see the young people, what they're interested in. It's more the computer games, it's more the kind of music. And in our times, to be a little bit casual in my presentation, to impress a girl, you had to be somehow knowledgeable in a couple of things, in philosophy, in psychology, in politics, and all that. And that was the time where I decided that was as a man of double culture. And the view and the perspective I had on the society, not what the society had on me, I said I have to find a platform to, to talk to people and to explain how I see the world, and that's why I choose to be an actor. And unfortunately, I say it a little bit because I'm still attracted by art. I mean, attracted not by commercial art. I'm attracted by art, what has a content, not to be successful, just a content. And I think that relates politics to art. You have to have a vision, and you have to go out with a content. If you want to reach people, you have to talk about something, not just about yourself and your own greatness. And I said, I want you to like me, I want you to listen to me, but if you have nothing to say, nobody will listen. So let's look, if you feel like listening to me on the issue we want to talk about, it's about the Germans' foreign policy after World War II. And just recently, we were celebrating the 70th anniversary of the end of World War II. At the same time, we had a delegation here for 50 years of the Jewish-German dialogue after quite a complicated time. So after World War II, what was Germany's foreign policy focusing on? It was on, re-implementing relationship with the countries where the relationship due to the war and all the consequences was irritated. So these were practically the first 2 decades Germany was focusing on. And of course, Germany, with the help of the United States, established also a functionalizing economy. And what we achieved in quite a short time. And so that was what the Germans are known for the Wirtschaftswunder. That was this period. And in this period, of course, the major focus was the transatlantic relationship, and we could have had also another perspective, not as positive as we really had it, because there was the plan, I think it was called the Morgenthau Plan, that was also in the pipeline coming through the United States. And the thing was, and when people now, and especially some youngsters, come up with a little bit of anti-Americanism, I think, listen, young folks, you have to think back a little bit, to that first what happened after the war and what our options were and what we did. And so America didn't implement the Morgenthau Plan, it implemented the Marshall Plan, and with all that, Germany easily recovered and became a serious business partner, and a cultural, also on the cultural level of the United States, and also for the rest of the world. Globalization. So, what's globalization? First of all, we have to make ourselves understood what globalization means. I remember when the name globalization came up in the term. First of all, it was, I think, in the 60s when it was written, and the first time somebody talked about globalization. And the French people came up, they were talking about mondialisation. Mondialization, it's more like a one world vision, and no national structures, just a one world in whatever sense. And I have to get back also to my artistic spirit of that time. We all thought that globalization, first of all, is that people know each other. We saw that a little bit under the perspective of altruistic communication, of people getting together, people enjoying themselves and knowing the culture better and all that. And, but the term globalization not only focuses on intercultural relationship, it also focuses on trade, it focuses on economics. So what are the parameters of globalization and as such? And I think globalization just really started with the digital area. We were digitalized when we had all this IT perspective, the IT, all the features we had to facilitate trade, to facilitate orders, to facilitate also money transfer and all that. That's when globalization started. And the idea was the liberalization of a global market. So the liberalization of a global market also needs, aside of that, what I was talking about the IT perspective, needs some tools. And I never thought, when I got a little bit more into that, I think the container business was one of the most important tool to facilitate trade. Because before, what did people do when they transported goods from one place, from China, India, or whatsoever, when they transported that, or from the United States? First of all, it took a lot of time for the ships to stay in the port and so on, and it took quite a bit of time. Now you had the container business, and with the container business, really globalization also really started. Germany has, and that's why a lot of people say, why doesn't Germany give a focus on our market and on our economy? The thing is, maybe, we recovered quite in a short time after the war, and our main focus was, at the beginning, the European zone and later on the Asian zone. And of course, we had the transatlantic economical relationship. We had very fast quite an experience and an expertise on high industrialized and high expertise in high technology. And so some markets for us were just not on the focus. In details, Germany exports 60% of its goods into the European community, 40% into the Eurozone. This is quite a bit. And then we have the big markets like the United States. And then this is a benchmark, is also what's the term in English? The new upcoming countries like India, like China, which made a transformation from more or less mid-income countries to high industrialized countries. And with this, with the appearance of the BRIC states, like you say, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and also of South Korea, everything changed. And as before, we had this bloc. We had the bloc of communism, which fell, which went down, as we had the Berlin Wall, which went down in the 90s. All of a sudden, we were somehow, as we were used to have an enemy, we had no enemies anymore. But we had competitors on a high level, and that changed quite a bit. And with the strengthening of these economies, we had at the same time we had a bigger market, and at the other side we also have competitors. So, how does Germany see itself in the contemporary period? And I have to compare it maybe to the United States. We are, in comparison to the United States, first of all, Germany is still in the solidarization process with the rest of Europe. European solidarization is not finished yet. And on the other hand, we are global economists, while the United States and China, they are global players. And so what is a global player and a global economist? We are maybe global player on the economical level, but a global real player has a military option, and we don't have that. We are too small. We are as a bloc too small. Europe doesn't have a military option as well. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we need a military option to occupy territories. That's not it. But it's also the element of defense is an element we should not forget. Because let's put it this way, to see and to talk a little bit out of the consciousness of the German population. Germany went through a wealthy period over more than 60 years, or close to 60 years. And people who live in this wealthy neighborhood and surrounding wealthy economy, sometimes, and I say that, if I talk to folks, I say that, I said, you don't know how the rest of the world, what the problem of the rest of the world is. If you don't know if the next day, you have enough food, or if you don't have enough food, you have no health insurance, you have no money for the retirement money and all that. So you think everything is granted, and you don't really know in which, let me put it this way, materially, maybe culturally, some people think different, and everybody's free on that to say, my culture is the one I feel the most comfortable with, is valid, but economically, you're quite fine, and you forget about all that. So, what is the difference between a global player and what is the difference between a global economical player? A global economical player is able to sell goods. That's what we do. We sell goods by having a more or less good or perfect relationship to other countries with a serious potential in economical exchange. And we're going to do it with TTIP, what I think and I hope, and we're going to do it with CETA. We establish economical relationships in terms of free trade agreement and all that, but it stops when it comes to other issues. So the strategic option in saying, you know, we say this is a block, and this is a block, and this is an area, and that's an area, and we have a strategy on an area, like, for example, China has. We can have that. I'm a member of diverse committees. I'm a member of the Committee of Foreign Affairs, Committee of Development Strategies, and that's an issue I would like to talk to you as well. And the Committee of Economics and Energy. In most of the countries, and when I talk to the colleagues, foreign affairs and economic and development strategies are combined. For us, it's separate. We also, since decades, have a vital discussion if this is necessary. In my eyes, I'm not really sure. I think it's not necessary. I think we have to have a coherent, I don't want to use the word strategy, a coherent approach on the development scenario. What is our focus? Like I said, no strategy. We have a focus, of course, on the key countries of the economic, with economic potential, but we also, due to the stabilization of the world in terms of climate problems, in terms of poverty issues, which also result in security issues, is an issue also we have to talk about, the security issue in terms of as a result of poverty. So what is our approach on development strategies? We don't, and sometimes I think we have to do it a little bit more. We don't conditionalize aid on trade or on economical relationship. We say, if I go and travel around the world, they say, yeah, you Germans, you give us money, you know, you give money to us on the bilateral level, on the multilateral level, due to your membership in the multilateral organizations like United Nations and all that. But your investors don't come. You don't come and say you invest. So first of all, thing is, of course, that we don't have this cultural experience. And at one side, it's a good thing because Germany doesn't have a widely, how can I say, doesn't have a big experience in colonialism. So we are quite free on that. There are a couple of countries in Africa where Germany was active, and like Cameroon, Tanzania, and part of the southern part of South Africa. It's an advantage at one time. At the other hand, it's a disadvantage, as we don't know the territories where we were not active in the negative sense. So anyway, I always try to encourage my colleagues from the parliament and also the people from the government. And that's why I'm happy to speak to you here. I see you're just from a couple of countries. I didn't know that you, Excellency, the ambassador of Pakistan, Yes, and people from Kashmir, people from Africa, Asia, and all over the world, from the Ukraine, are here. And I think we have to open up a little bit more to be active, and also our industry has to get rid of that what we call risk aversion. We have to risk a little bit more to expand our strategies and our economic strategies to countries which were not really close to our cultural circle. Like our President Gauck said in the Security Conference last year, he said we have to take more responsibility around the world. So responsibility is at one side also to transport values without confronting some people with and other folks with a culture they're not used to. And I think, as I'm a person of double cultural person, I see there are chances in any culture. And we are not so different from each other. We are just, the approach on life is different, but still somehow we are the same human beings. We feel the same, and just, I think, from the evolutionary perspective, we just lived in a different climate, lived in different circumstances, and so what we call mentality is not that due to our personal greatness of human being, we addressed it to ourselves. I think the nature addressed it to us. And I think the more we meet and the more we communicate with each other, the more we will not just see the things which are different. I think the more we will discover similarities, and the more we can have an exchange on the cultural level. And of course, as every economy functions also on the basis of economy, some economical exchange, that the participation of that what we call wealth is more global, and we have definitely to reduce poverty around the world to make the world more safe and bring the world together. So I think my speaking time was only normally 10 minutes, but don't let a former actor speak. He will never have a time frame. He will never respect the time frame. So thank you very much, Mr. Dornfried, for giving me the floor and the opportunity to speak in front of such a distinguished auditorium, and such also a knowledgeable and international auditorium. And next time, there is something where I can contribute, with my ideas and present a little bit as well how the approach of the German government is. Let me know, and I will come around. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening. Have a great evening.